Make some noise for your host, Kid Copious.
What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in the bunker, Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here, man. We are repping America, common sense, the center, and fun little poppers. Oh, that was a good one. I like that one. So, hey, if you haven't seen the title card of this is episode 104. You know, I do one a week, so 104 weeks, 2 years. You know, I'm not a big channel yet. That's not really my concern. I'm just going to keep doing this, and I appreciate every single person who has ever tuned in to my YouTube videos or seen my Instagram clips or whatever, you know, whatever you've seen, man. You know, I just really appreciate it. I'm trying to bring a new perspective, I guess. Because I care about this country. I care about the people in this country. I care about the people of the world. And I really don't think that the right and the left are really doing a good job. And speaking of that, we'll just jump right into it. The episode is entitled World War B, a play on the movie World War Z, which was about zombies. And I thought, wow, we've got pretty much a zombie in the White House right now. And people are really starting to wake up to that, and people are really starting to agree with that. His approval rating, according to Harvard caps Harris poll, and I'm guessing they tried really hard to find people who would be sympathetic to Brandon. But they came up with a 38% approval rating. Yeah, 17% strongly approve of his job. I guess they just, you know, they're the people who just mark the box that says D. They don't really think. Bunch of sheep, you know. Hey, there's sheep on both sides, don't get me wrong, man. Sheep on both sides, you know. 39% say they strongly disapprove. Yeah. And in that same poll, they found out that 64% of registered voters say that Biden is too lenient with Russia. 5% must have been Russia because they said he's too tough on Russia. You know? And this was, you know, 2,026 registered voters conducted very recently, the 23rd and the 24th. I think we're sitting on the 27th while I'm recording this. But yeah, they couldn't find anybody who liked him. A new NPR PBS poll, again, people who side with Biden, right? You know, they're out there looking to find people who are sympathetic. And 56% of the people surveyed said that Biden's first year in office was a failure. And there's that 39% describe it as a success. And, you know, I have that theory about there's always going to be 30% of people who are just blind. And they're just going to, you know, they're just going to agree with whatever their leader, their team says to agree with, you know. And when you dig into it, you'll find that 2/3, so roughly 66% of independents say that Biden's first year was a failure, and 91% of Republicans, big surprise, agree with that assessment. I myself, as a member of Purple State, I'm in the middle. I guess I would be kind of considered an independent, maybe a little bit Republican. But yeah, it's been a failure. He hasn't done anything to unite the country. He hasn't done anything to strengthen the country. He hasn't done anything to help the country. And he's leaving the world hanging. I mean, the guy's a fucking utter disaster. And we knew it going in. We knew he was a bad choice. People like myself begged you, before you vote Trump out, consider who you're going to replace him with. You're replacing him with a 40-year career politician who has never really done much. He has literally said racist statements. He has literally done and voted for things that were racist. He is the oldest dinosaur in the room, and that's what you chose. And he quickly fell in line with all of the college-educated white libs who like to use terms like Latinx and pronouns and birthing people. And where's that gotten us? It's gotten us nowhere. It's gotten small, tiny little minorities more rights than maybe they deserve to have. We now have biological males taking positions away from females in sports. That's not a good thing. We've now emboldened the side that wants to burn down cities every time a black person is killed by the police, whether it's justified or not. If it's an unjustified killing, I'm all for the protest. I really am. I'm all for it. I think police need to be held accountable when they make mistakes. I do. But like we saw, over the summer when George Floyd died, he was partially responsible for his own death. He did not just simply comply. And for people out there to say that we don't have to comply with the police, that's a load of bullshit. Okay? That's not the way a society works. Okay? And he wasn't innocent. He was on drugs, and he apparently had used a counterfeit bill. I mean, okay? It's a tragic death. Maybe it didn't need to happen, but you don't need to burn down cities over it. And those are the people that have been emboldened. People who are trying to fight for actual change have been silenced. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. I'm trying to strike a balance between law and order and responsibility and criminals on the streets. I don't give a shit the color of your skin. If you're a criminal, you're a criminal. You need to be treated as such a criminal. But as we're going to see as we go through here, those rules are changing. We're making concessions for people who have these things that we have identified as important now. We see people faking being transgender to get privileges in jail. We see decisions being made on what's important, like we saw up in San Francisco with the school board that got booted. They thought it was important to change the names of schools more than to educate the students. See, that's just stupid to me. But whatever. This is stupid to me. LA spending up to $837,000 to house a single homeless person. How I don't understand how we accept that. And that goes to that 30% that I was talking about. People who just blindly follow their party or their team down these catastrophes, down these catastrophic paths. I mean, that's asinine. That's obviously a product of corruption. That's it. That's all there is to it. Okay, because you could build a house for $800,000. You could build several houses for $800,000 in the real world, but in the government world, in the California world, California, you can bill the state of California $800,000 to make a one-room apartment. That's just stupid. And see, that's what Purple State is going to be standing for. The end to that kind of stuff. That we're not going to do that because it's corruption. You know it. You know that those construction companies are going to give kickbacks to the Democratic politicians who signed the fucking check. We have millions of dollars out there that was given to construction companies for these housing projects that vanished. The money vanished. Okay? It vanished. And it's crazy because, again, we're using the excuse of, the reason there's so many homeless people here is because California is expensive, so let's build expensive homes to house them, even though the real problem is drugs and mental illness and criminals. That's where the real problem is. The real problem is not that people can't find homes, because they can. That once they find the home, they can't live there, though. Do you want a meth addict living in your house? Do you want a drunk living in your house? Do you want a psychotic person who refuses to take their medication living in your house? No, neither does the state. Ridiculous. More ridiculousness. Hunter Biden. This guy's a sleazebag. And if the truth about Hunter Biden had come out before the election or during the primaries, we would not have Joe Biden. We'd have somebody else and maybe a whole other set of problems. I don't know. Tulsi Gabbard might have been a whole set of problems. Mayor Pete, Bernie Sanders. But I think all those people, for whatever faults they may have, okay, at least are not suffering from what appears to be dementia. Maybe Tulsi could have stood on her own feet, and maybe she could have united the country by, closing the gap between the right and the left and moving towards the center a little bit. Maybe. But I know it's not Joe. We have the proof. A year in, it's a fucking failure. Everything that we didn't need to happen has happened. And if Hunter's bio had been put out there, if his crimes had been put out there instead of silenced by mainstream media and Facebook and Twitter, maybe people wouldn't have put him up as the candidate. Maybe. I mean, it's something to consider, because we can't have this shit continue. We can't have corrupt politicians. We need to get rid of that. Here's another laughable one. Minnesota middle school students given tips for BLM protests. White students told not to speak. That's what you're telling middle schoolers. For oldies like myself, man, that was junior high. That was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. This is just indoctrination, and it is not helpful. It's not. If you want to talk about the black struggles, look at Martin Luther King, look at Rosa Parks. Look at people like that were flat out victimized. There's no two sides to it. Making black people sit at the back of the bus simply because they're black. There is no right or wrong. It's just fucking wrong. And they did it peacefully. And they did it without burning cities down. And they did it in the face of police officers who used fire hoses and dogs on them. Okay? They fought. You guys aren't fighting out there. Okay? You're fighting in places like Portland and Seattle where they roll over and just give up the booty. Another one that just popped up, and it's going to get buried here. But apparently a snippet of code coming off of COVID looks awfully like the one that was patented by Moderna, who, by the way, is making vaccines. Now, it's something called furin cleavage site, and I tried really hard to learn all about that, but I guess I'm not that intelligent. But basically, it does look like more and more that the original COVID did come out of a lab. Again, I'm not taking sides in this, okay? I'm not saying that I support the lab theory because that's what Trump said. All right? I support the lab theory because that's what it looks like to me. If you don't believe that, you don't have to believe it, okay? I have a brother who constantly says he doesn't believe me and that I'm just parroting Trump. I'm not, okay? All right? Trump said some things that made sense. He also said some things that didn't make sense. Russia blocks Twitter. I don't think Twitter has blocked Russia, though. That's, again, one of those things because it's, it's not it's not beneficial just to sequester information out of Russia, apparently. But when we want to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop, that's disinformation. No, it's not. And it wasn't, and we know it wasn't now. And here's another one. I think this is the last of my bullet points here. But marijuana testing for truck drivers is becoming a leading cause of the growing national trucker shortage, experts say. And now I get it. Look, I get it, okay? If you haven't figured it out, I do smoke weed, all right? Cool. I don't smoke weed when I drive. I don't smoke weed when I work, all right? But after hours, when I'm home and I'm not leaving again, I like to do that. Now, here's the rub. Here's the rub that a lot of people might not understand. Alcohol, meth, cocaine, heroin, the opiates, things like that, they're metabolized quickly and they leave the body, usually within about 48 hours. So if you do a bunch of meth on Friday night, you'll probably be clean Monday. Alcohol, same thing. We know that alcohol being a very dangerous drug out there, one of the most dangerous drugs, one of the few drugs that'll kill you when you try to quit drinking. But I digress. Marijuana, up to 30 days. So how can a trucker smoke some weed on the weekend, smoke some weed after his shift, whatever, whenever he does it, and he's now going to test positive and will be removed from the road? Now, I understand. I don't want truckers driving stoned. I don't want them driving drunk, and I don't want them driving methed out. I don't want that. But the problem with marijuana testing is that marijuana stays in your system longer than any of those substances. It is the least dangerous of the substances and the longest lasting. And it doesn't affect you. It's just in your system. It just stays there. It's in your fat cells. And again, marijuana is the thing that is driving truckers off. And it is, because if they get caught with it in their system, they're removed from the road. So, again, we need to rethink. We need to use some common sense on this. Obviously, like I said many times, I don't want them driving high. So, we're going to start here because, we know what this week's all been about. Russia invaded the Ukraine. And one of the reasons Russia invaded the Ukraine was because Putin realized we weren't going to and we weren't able to. Okay? Trump here was very upset with NATO because they weren't increasing defense spending and they were signing more and more energy deals with Russia. Now, I've heard some people in the comments say, well, America imports stuff from Russia too. Yes, but not energy. Not the same way that some of these other countries import their energy. Some of these smaller countries, 100% of their gas supplies from Russia. But even Germany's getting 50% of their energy from Russia. So if they try to do anything, they're going to affect their own people. And why isn't Germany on using nuclear power and things like that? Well, they were. They found that solar and windmills didn't really work. They did nuclear power, but now they've kowtowed to the anti-nukes out there. And I don't know what Germany... And Germany, just for comparison, is about the size of Wisconsin. And it didn't work there. Renewable energy, solar and wind didn't work there. Nuclear power, too scary. But if you're getting all of your gas from Russia, what kind of sanctions can you really levy? And they're now, Psaki's coming out trying to blame Trump for all this. And Crenshaw has a great response, and that was in that video from The Sun. Trump is the one who was telling Europe, don't get in bed with Russia. And that, he said right there, don't ask us to be protecting you when you're relying on them for energy. Rely on us for energy. And this is a quick little segue over here. Just going to go over this way for a second. We get a majority of our shit from China. Europe gets a majority of their energy from Russia. Those are our two biggest enemies on the planet, okay? Iran, North Korea, distant second. China and Russia are our big problems. Our supply chain is a huge problem, and it goes from China to the West Coast. Why are we not investing down in Central America? In a country called Panama, for example. Imagine that. From Panama, you could ship to the West Coast, the East Coast, and the Middle Coast. Texas, Florida, New York, Boston, LA, San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. They're just up from a little isthmus or whatever you would call it that goes down into Central America. You could go either way and surround the United States. Why aren't we doing that? Why are we not strengthening our side of the planet? Why are we not figuring out ways to get fuel sources from Central and South America? I don't understand this. I understand that we tried to give a lot of our manufacturing to China so that maybe they would stop being communist assholes and become capitalist assholes. No, but, to appease them, to maybe work towards peace through mutual agreements and things like that. But instead, the Chinese steal our technology, sell it to other countries. We have all of our manufacturing over there. Medicine, masks. I mean, it's ridiculous. That we saw that with COVID, that too much stuff was coming out of China. If we were manufacturing our N95 masks and our medicines south of our border, we would be able to, like I said, get it to all sides of the United States quickly, easily, and within our control. And then China won't have a leg to stand on. They can keep selling their counterfeit shit goods into Asia and India and Africa, and they can do their thing, okay? Same thing with Russia. When you're getting 100% of your gas or half of your gas supply from Russia, it's really hard to take a really firm stand. And trust me, our sanctions aren't amounting to anything because Putin already took that into account. Putin already knew what the U.S. was going to do. They were going to do some weak-ass sanctions. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of money to the layperson, but Putin was building that up. He was stockpiling gold and foreign currency. He recently sold a bunch of foreign currency to offset the drop in the ruble. Okay, he had this all planned out. He knew Europe couldn't stand strong because they're getting most of the countries are getting their fuel from there, or at least enough of them. And he knew the U.S. wasn't going to do anything because Biden is a fucking puss. And that's, sorry, Betty White, I shouldn't say it. Biden is a wuss. Okay? Biden wasn't going to do it. The reason he didn't do it under Trump, because he didn't know what Trump would do. Maybe Trump would have made it worse. Maybe he would have made it better. I don't know. We're not going to see. Sure, he illegally invaded a neighboring country and threw the entire world in disarray, but at least he hasn't violated Twitter's term of service. See, that's I was saying earlier. He's still up on Twitter. So part of the issue is that because Biden signaled that he doesn't want more drilling, he doesn't want to increase energy production. Now, energy production is going to increase under Biden. It's a simple fact. Energy, we need more and more gas. We just do. We need more and more. There are more and more people, more and more things being transported by trucks. It's inevitable. But he signaled that he's certainly not going to try to provide the world with oil. Now, some people say, it's not really his fault. At some point we're going to get off fossil fuels and then it'll be obsolete technology. And we'll build this huge infrastructure to supply the world with oil and then the world will stop using oil. I don't know about that. Okay? That's very presumptuous. Because I don't think electric vehicles are ever going to be the way. I don't think they're going to be the way. I think they're fraught with way too many issues. Number one, if you have a blackout, how do you charge your car? How do you charge your cell phone? How do you run the heater? Electric generators, what? How's that going to work? We're all going to have little solar panels? I don't know, because blackouts often happen when there's not a lot of sun. Windmills, same thing. Power outages happen a lot when there's high winds, which are too high for the windmills to operate, or freezing temperatures, which freeze up the windmills like they did in places like Germany and Texas. But, by shutting down projects and sort of saying that we don't want to increase this, Putin knew he had Europe by the balls. That was part of the reason. Right there, make no mistake, Putin knows just as well as Biden that the U.S. is in no position to cut off Russia's energy exports. Boom. That's it. The U.S.'s hands are tied, but it wasn't Putin who tied them. It was Biden and his merry band of environmentalists. And it is. It's a bunch of cuckoo shit. Oh, we've thrown everything we have at Putin. A celebrity recited a poem. John Kerry warned that the war will cause more global warming. There you go. Joe Behar needs it to end so she can go to Italy. But I want to focus in on that John Kerry comment. You know, because it's what's driving these weak-ass sanctions. Okay? Right here, see? Go ahead, Putin, make my day. And there's Kamala cackling in the background. And here's his response, teaching Blinken how to bend over. This position shows the world we're willing to work with them. We're bending over backwards to appease the tyrants of the world in the name of climate change. That's really what we're doing? We'll get to that in just a second, because I wanted to show you an old tweet from our former president. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. Will somebody from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it is much bigger and more powerful one than his, and my button works. That's the kind of sass, that's the kind of straight-up thug talk that we need in this world. Biden's not doing that. Biden's worried about pronouns. Biden's worried about what we should call Hispanics because we find their language to be problematic. You know, we're worried about, like it says right here, sure, Biden even admits that Putin wants to recreate the Soviet Union. But don't fret, Biden rejoined the Paris Accord. That's not what we need to be focused on. We do need to clean up our act. I don't disagree with that. But right now is not the time to be doing it. So here's back to Mr. Kerry, the climate change envoy, the climate czar, who flies around in a private jet and owns multiple cars and multiple houses, and he's up there with, you know, as far as one person and their pollution, Kerry's pretty much he's up towards the top. Don't get it twisted. But he, of course, thinks climate change and Chinese solar panels take precedent over their genocide. And he complained about the Russian invasion of Ukraine not because it was an unprovoked attack on a sovereign state, but because it would distract from climate change. Seriously. That's what the Democratic Party has become. Hey, look, if we need to deal with climate change, we need to, again, I'm all in favor of hybrids, but hybrids you can't monetize as well. So they don't want to use hybrids. They want to go all electric. Yeah, they're not going to go all electric because you can't have electric planes. And planes pollute way more than cars. But anyhow, he's worried about climate change. Right there. John Kerry urges Putin to help fight climate change during invasion. Really kind of a weird time. I don't think Putin really gives a shit about climate change. If he even believes that it's man-made, I doubt it. He doesn't care. He's rolling tanks, man. The war is the last thing you need to deal with. A war is the last thing you need to deal with respect to a unified effort to try and deal with the climate challenge, Kerry told a Reuters reporter. He decried the emissions consequence of Russia's invasion. You're going to lose people's focus, certainly big country attention, because they will be diverted from the climate agenda. I like the author put, Kerry's remarks are aloof, callous, clueless, but most of all, unserious. He's placating the younger base. He's placating the fringe base by telling them climate change is more important than Ukraine. Now, for you or me, what's going on in the Ukraine, it's probably not going to affect us very much. But from a bigger perspective, from a human perspective, this is a country that's being invaded and people are being killed. And God knows what else. And these fools want to continue with the climate change while doing nothing about it personally. Obama bought a house on the beach, but he thinks there's going to be rising sea levels. Kerry wants Putin to remain focused on climate change while he's flying around in a jet. We're just going to... So now let's talk about a couple sanctions that might actually work. Germany is going to shut down the Nord Stream 2. They will still be supplied by Nord Stream 1, but at least they got serious about it. Boris Johnson, the Trump of UK, he's going after members of the ruling elite in Russia. They come to Harrods to shop. They stay in our best hotels when they like. They send their children to our best public schools. And this is what's being stopped. So those are some pretty decent sanctions. At least they're striking where, at the people in a way that actually hurts. But when it comes to the world stage, soccer is the thing that rules. And UEFA, the governing body of European football, has removed the Champions League final from Russia. And that's a blow, man. That's a blow. I mean, Biden removed Major League Baseball, removed the All-Star game because of Jim Crow 2.0, and they moved it to Denver, which was pretty much just a financial move for baseball. They saw an opportunity to have a better arena, so they went to a better arena, so to speak. But losing the Champions League final, wow, that fucking hurts, man. Trust me, that really hurts because, soccer is the one sport where everybody competes, and it's got a lot of prestige. The UEFA Champions League is one of the most prestigious tournaments in the world, and losing it to France has got to sting, and it's got to hurt the Russian people. The average citizens have got to be a little bit pissed off about that. All the other sanctions, they're going to get shit hammered by Putin. Believe me. I mean, everything we've done is only going to hurt the citizens, but they won't see it in the same way that they're going to see losing the Champions League. Poland is now refusing to play Russia in a 2022 World Cup playoff game. I wouldn't be too surprised if FIFA, another governing body in soccer, doesn't just give Poland the win and give Poland the place. The spot, Russia might get themselves kicked out of World Cup again. That's the kind of thing that the average Russian is going to be pissed off about. And UEFA, again, they're going to end their sponsorship deal with Gazprom. If you don't know, Gazprom is the Russian natural gas and gas supplier. And they support a lot of clubs and across Europe. And that will really reduce their profile and maybe start putting some actual pressure on Putin to get the hell out of Ukraine, because this is not a good look. The world of soccer is important to Europe and even to Russia. I'm just waiting for the day where the Russians decide that they want to take over women's soccer, and they just put a bunch of biological males out there with lower testosterone levels. Because we're already seeing it here. We're giving them a playbook to how to ruin female sports on a global basis. California Cat places biological males with schoolgirls. They were 5th graders. And they slept in a room with trans females who were 20-year-old biological males. I understand what we're trying to do here, folks. I support the trans community. I really do. But there needs to be some sort of limit. There has to be a limit to this insanity. Okay? No matter how we accept people, they're still boys. They're still 20-year-old boys sleeping with 5th grade girls in the same room. Why should 5th grade girls be made to feel uncomfortable just to placate a couple of boys who believe themselves to be girls? I don't understand. It's not difficult. It's absolutely not difficult that a 5th grade girl should not be sleeping in the room with a man. I understand. If you want to transition, great. I support that. But there has to be limits. There has to be common sense. And the common sense of it is no matter what you think, you're still biologically a male and need to be treated as such. But even worse, the trans child molester. And the worst part is we are now referring to this piece of shit as trans. He's not trans. Okay? He does not represent the trans community. And in fact, wasn't even trans until after his arrest. Okay? He was arrested under his birth name. He was a boy. And we know this because, as we could see when he's talking to a caller in a recorded jailhouse conversation, now they're going to put me in with other slur for trans people that have seen their cases like mine, or with another slur like me that has a case like mine. So make sure when you come to court, address me as she. So this piece of shit is trying to play that game. And Gascon then goes ahead and plays right along. And he knew it was going to have to I read something there. He knew what was going to happen. He told his dad, I'm just going to plead it out. They're going to stick me on probation. It's going to be dropped. It's going to be done. I don't even have to register. And his dad was like, you won't have to register? He knew what these fucking hippie DAs were going to do. And they did. He got a 2-year prison sentence in a female juvenile facility. After not molesting, raping, attacking and raping a little girl. Gascon refused to try him as an adult. And he got 2 years in a juvenile facility. Will not have to register as a sex offender. Because these people like Gascon, want to placate the fringe elements who think that this person was just a juvenile when he did what he did. No. He said vile things about that little girl. And he literally just said she was a piece of meat and I wanted to eat. He was a monster. And when he was finally caught, Gascon gave him 2 years in a juvenile girls' facility. This guy will hopefully be kept quarantined away from all the other prisoners, or he will just rape as much as he wants. And he already has plans to go through with a sex change because he wants to do what he wants to do and get away with it. So electric vehicles not being a thing. So I'm going to go over this quick because we've still got a lot of ground to cover here. But nickel used in car batteries is polluting the water, much like we saw in Aaron Brockovich, the movie Aaron Brockovich, and all of that. Happened in real life. It was a movie, but it was in real life. Yeah. Right there. Indonesia. Okay? We're going to pollute the planet to stop polluting the planet. It doesn't make any sense. These batteries, with the lithium and the destruction that causes, we're going to do that in California, by the way. Nickel polluting the water. We are so obsessed with fossil fuels and global warming that we are going to blow up the planet trying to get away from fossil fuels. It doesn't make any sense. It's like trying to plug a bullet hole with another bullet. So, of course, as we all knew was going to happen, Biden is appointing a Supreme Court nominee. He's got a Supreme Court nominee in black female, just like he said. Hey, he kept his word. Kept his word, folks. Got to give him that. Kept his word. And, of course, he went out and found a completely radicalized lefty. Say what you want about the people on the Supreme Court, but most of them subscribed to people like Ginsburg and Scalia. People who were not trying to advocate or be activists on the bench. They set aside their differences to look at the constitutionality of things. Scalia and Ginsburg were on opposite political spectrums, but they were friends. They respected each other because They were not fringe elements. They understood that sometimes their beliefs had to be set aside. She doesn't. And, like right here, pro-life advocates often engage in silent prayers. She calls them chaotic scenes and should be stripped of their First Amendment protections because it is not pure speech, but rather are a form of expression analogous to labor picketing. What? What? She also wants to disparage pro-life sidewalk counselors, most often comprised of moms, grandmothers, nuns, and women who regret their own abortions. She unjustly attacked them as hostile, in-your-face gauntlet, while ignoring the fact that there were reluctant women who really wanted to keep the baby, but abusive parents, abusive spouses, partners, peers, who basically just beat in their head, you have to abort, you have to abort. And there's one thing about being pro-choice, but this lady, who's now going to sit on the Supreme Court, is pro-abortion. And that's fucking gross. Okay? Nobody should be pro-abortion. All right? Abortion should be viewed as a last resort type thing. Not just like, yay, abortion, go kill a baby. No. And if people want to try to talk people out of that, what the fuck is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Trying to tell a woman, hey, maybe, I regret it, my abortion, maybe you should think about adoption or something else. What is wrong with that? It's just common sense to allow that. When she was a public defender, what's her name over here? She went beyond the bare bones defense of terrorists at Guantanamo Bay, where she lambasted the U.S. government for some of its policies and their approach to the war on terror. It's one thing to make sure that a defendant has his rights, exercised. It's another to attack the United States and try to get a terrorist off based on political ideology. Facts, sure. Ideology, no. But, that's who they're going to put up. Ketanji Brown Jackson here. She's pro-abortion. That's gross. And if you have that in your heart, you're not going to set that aside when you get on the bench. You're not. I mean, I wouldn't want like a far-right Nazi scumbag on the Supreme Court. So I don't want a far-left Nazi scumbag. Whatever. Found this one. Kind of found it really interesting, the whole idea now of one-way masking. And this doctor, who's an actual doctor, is talking about they won't take their mask off. This is not about me. It's about my neighbors. This guy really, here's another one. This is a primary care and HIV physician who says, we need equity-centered, data-driven guidance. You are a doctor. Do what you think is best. How about that? You need the government to tell you what to do. Oh my God, you're a fucking doctor. Like, people, I just don't even get it. Here's a funny one. People are already being censored on Trump's Truth Social. I'm not making this shit up, folks. I'm sure they were probably extreme right-wing type comments, but wow. It doesn't take long for us to see behind the curtain and realize that these companies are just trying to make money. So getting into the best of them, I really like this one. It's an homage to Batman. I think it's true, to be honest with you. I understand what Trump's faults were, blah, 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 but when it came to the world stage, man, he knew how to keep shit together. Maybe it was just his unpredictability. Biden approval rating in Ukraine drops to 0%. Yeah, I bet it does. Journalism then. I will go to the most war-torn places on earth to bring you the story. Journalism now. Someone donated $40 to a fundraiser I don't like. Yeah, I don't really see how that's very helpful. But I found that funny. After legitimizing China, International Olympic Committee narrows down choice for next Olympics to Iran, North Korea, or Canada. Suck it, Canada. You look pretty bad right now. At least your government does. Americans will now be required to identify Ukraine on a map before posting an opinion on Ukraine. I guess. I mean, it is what it is, and it's kind of hard to say like whether or not we should be chiming in, but I just found that funny. Putin withdraws from Ukraine after celebrities threaten to sing Imagine. Yeah, I don't think so. John Kerry orders emergency airdrop of solar panels to Ukraine to offset carbon emissions. See, and I mean, that's not very far from the truth, all right? Taiwan enjoys free sneak peek at what will happen to them in just a few weeks. Sad but true, but you know what? If you don't think the Ukraine affects us, Taiwan, yes. Taiwan is the leading producer of the semiconductors that we deem usable by us and our allies, okay? When Taiwan falls, we're going to have a hard time getting semiconductors. Semiconductors are somewhat of a broad category. It's sort of like saying electronic parts. So imagine what is affected if we lose those. Russia deploy new tank that opens to reveal consecutively smaller tanks. I don't know how you joke about war, but that's a good joke about war. Biden announces he will move to unfollow Putin on Twitter. That is so symbolic of the world we live in now. Those are the sanctions. I'm going to unfollow you. And here's my favorite one. 2022 Winter Olympics go straight to VHS. That's fucking genius. That's the Babylon beef for you folks. That is not even straight to DVD, straight to VHS. Holy shit. But I wanted to leave you on this one because this is a very accurate statement here. The things that Uncle Sam is dreaming about: law and order, booming economy, energy independence, secure borders, peace in Europe and Ukraine, China and Czech. I don't know how you argue against this picture. I suppose you could say that gas was going up a little bit under Trump and would eventually get to where it is. You could say we weren't entirely energy independent, or he doesn't control inflation, or I guess the secure borders. I find that hard to believe. You could argue that maybe Trump wouldn't have been able to do anything about Ukraine. But China has been in check. Not much longer. But the fact that these issues materialize so quickly upon Biden taking office makes me think that it has to do with Biden. Begged you to really consider who to vote for to get rid of Trump. You know? But unfortunately, it just became so apparent that it was going to be Biden, who I despised to begin with. We couldn't have a call for an independent vote. We couldn't go with an independent party. We had to align ourselves with Trump. Now again, I voted for him because he earned my vote, okay? That's fine. I would have liked him to I think I'd much rather have him being president right now. I think a lot of people can agree with that, because a lot of people seem to think that Biden is a failure, and he has been a failure. But this is what happens when you subscribe to a team and you back that team no matter what, and then that team latches on to the extremist and placates them and makes them think that the threat to Taiwan or the threat to Ukraine is not as important as global warming or pronouns or problematic language or mean tweets. They have shifted the priorities to placate the far left. And that's not something that we've seen the right doing. The right is not trying to excuse racism. They're not. They're not trying to become the Nazi Party of America. They're not. They're being ineffectual. They're being weak-kneed about shit. But they're not trying to placate the far. Not like the left is. The left is literally sinking the entire ship called America to placate the radicals of their party. And they're ignoring the moderates and they're ignoring the center. And at some point, we need people from both parties to move to the center. And then we have to fight. We have to eradicate the left from the right. And we have to live in the middle. Think about it. Think about it really hard, because we have to do this if we're ever going to get anywhere on things like climate change and racial equities and blah, 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 blahs. It has to come out of the center, because the center will come up with things that actually work and actually matter and actually bring about meaningful change. Okay? Copious out. Thank you for 2 years. I love you.